Hey guys, my name is Harry. You may know me as a long distance runner. I've run 2:27 in the marathon and 15:23 in the 5K. But I thought I'd come on here today and just have a little chat about my kind of journey with osteoporosis and fractures this year. It's been quite a challenging year on the running front, to say the least, after a really positive 2023. But one of the reasons I wanted to come on and I guess share my story this year is because I remember how I felt when I first got diagnosed, and especially after the second fracture. And at that point, there wasn't much hope in terms of running or even getting back to good health. It was obviously quite a low point at that point. So for me, if this video can help one person out there that's potentially struggling with either fractures or osteoporosis or a combination of the two, then I've done my job. So yeah, that's what I want to do today. Just share basically what I've been through and a kind of few things I've changed as a result of that. So yeah, hopefully it provides some value to some people out there. So yeah, all started early this year. I had a really good 2023. I ran 2:27 in the London Marathon in April last year, and then alongside that I ran a 69-minute half marathon, and towards the very end of the year I ran 15:23 for the 5K. So on the running front, everything was going really well in 2023. It was easily the best year of running I'd ever had. Training was good. I had no injuries really. Niggles were very minimal. And yeah, just generally I felt really good running. And then basically the 1st of January this year is when I picked up my first fracture, which was in my hip, the right superior pubic ramus, if I remember that exactly. Quite the mouthful. But yeah, that came after a sustained period of kind of hard training over winter and a few kind of fast 5Ks in that. And then yeah, January the 1st, I attempted just a light 5K and I realised something was up. And from that point onwards, it was a lot of rest basically. Got the fracture on the 1st, went for the scan, I think about 2 weeks later, where it was confirmed to be a fracture. Because when you get a pain like that, you don't immediately know what it is, especially if you've not had a fracture before, which I hadn't. But yeah, got the fracture officially on the 1st, and from that point it was basically a lot of rest. I consulted a few specialists at that point, both private and through our health system here in the UK, and kind of went from there. But for January, February and March, there was a lot of rest involved. I didn't do barely any cross training. I made some changes to my nutrition and strength work, which I'll come on to a little later, but for the most part, it was just rest. So I'd had this brilliant 2023, especially towards the end of the year. Then all of a sudden, basically nothing. For January, February, March, and even into April, I was doing very minimal movement at all, to be honest. Could I have potentially done a bit more? Absolutely. But for a variety of reasons, I didn't do that. So yeah, very minimal for the first quarter of the year. And then it wasn't until, I believe, late April where I could return to running. And to be honest, when I first got the fracture, obviously it's never great to get a fracture, but I thought, you know what? I've trained hard here. I can see why it's happened. Hopefully it's and that's it, one and gone. Unfortunately, as I said, I returned to running in April, mid-April, I think it was. And everything was going well. I had a few weeks of kind of just building back up, potentially slightly a bit too quick, but it's easy to say that in hindsight. And then it was early May where I got my second fracture of the year, which was in my sacral joint in the back, or lower spine. And it was at that point where I kind of thought there might be something a bit deeper than just simply getting fractures. As I said, potentially I'd rushed back a little too quick, but for me to get 2 separate fractures in 2 different spots, both from running, obviously wasn't great. So it was at that point I was referred to get a DEXA scan. which, if you don't know, essentially tests your bone density. There's a lot of pros and cons about using that device, I guess you'd call it, but that's for another video. But anyway, I went for the DEXA scan a few weeks after that second fracture. Obviously, at this point, I was like, not in the best headspace, I guess you'd say, because ultimately, to get a fracture, as you know, really soon after the first one was never ideal. After the first one I had repaired, sorry. So yeah, I got that fracture. Then I went for a DEXA scan, and unfortunately, it did reveal I had something called osteoporosis, which is essentially thinning of the bones. When you go for a DEXA scan, you get a measurement of how thin, how thick your bones are, and yeah, it basically revealed that I had osteoporosis. Obviously, at this point, I was, a bit shocked. Obviously, it's quite hard to take. As someone, I've been active my whole life. I've run now for 5-6 years consistently, but I've always played tennis, played football quite a bit when I was younger. So yeah, it was a lot to take in. I'd had 2 fractures. I'd just been diagnosed with osteoporosis. So yeah, at that point, things weren't looking too great. The first couple of specialists I saw were, I guess, understandably very negative about my outlook, I guess. I asked one doctor in particular, is there anything positive you can say at this point? And I was met with silence. So you can imagine how that felt on the other side. I kind of wrote running off just from what I was being told. And to be honest, from the research I'd done myself. I mean, when you search osteoporosis on Google, one of the first things that comes up is basically it's not reversible, which, can be argued because there's certainly been cases of people improving it, if not reversing it. But yeah, generally it's a really, really hard thing to reverse. And to be honest, it's not something usually you'd get at my age. A lot of people that get it are females that are postmenopausal, into the 50s, 60s, 70s, and so on. So yeah, definitely a big shock. I could never have predicted that. So yeah, at that point, not looking too great. It was at that point that I, didn't want to give up. So I reached out to a few specialists and a few doctors essentially, and got some more opinions, which was really, really useful. And I'd kind of recommend anyone who's going through something similar, maybe you've been diagnosed with osteopenia, osteoporosis, or just had fractures. It's always good to get opinions from those that specialise in the field. Obviously, when you see like a GP, a general practitioner, they're only going to have a certain amount of knowledge for whatever you have generally. So if you can see a specialist, which I did, they can provide a lot of value and hopefully something positive to work with, which mine did. So yeah, it was at that point I basically got told to not give up and yeah, change a lot of what I do. So whether that is nutrition, sleep, strength, they were the main 3, but also footwear as well. I've made a lot of changes and luckily, touch wood, I am back running now, and been building it up for a few months, which is brilliant. And just very grateful to be back running and hoping it continues. But yeah, before I go on to that, just quickly speaking about, some of the changes I made. So sleep's always been an issue for me. I've always struggled with sleep. Can't really put that down to anything in particular. Potentially not having a good routine. But I really wanted to improve it. Sleep's obviously so important, but especially when you're active and an athlete. So I've made some changes. And I take magnesium before I go to sleep. I wear a sleep mask to block out all light. I try to go to bed at roughly the same time every night. Obviously, in practice, it's a little trickier. But yeah, I try and go to bed roughly 11 p.m. every night. What else do I do for sleep? I've tried to cut out caffeine. I haven't cut it out completely, but definitely limited it. which is tricky, obviously, especially as an athlete. Caffeine can be very, very helpful. But yeah, in terms of sleep, trying to limit that before 2 p.m. can make a big difference. And to be fair, last few months, my sleep has improved dramatically. So it's gone from 5-6 hours of not great sleep to 7, 8, 9 of pretty good quality sleep. So that's one big change that I've made. Obviously makes a hell of a difference when it comes to recovery and performance. In terms of nutrition, I've seen several nutritionists and obviously spoke with my doctor originally. Definitely an area that I can improve on, but I have made some good changes. I'm having much more calcium nowadays, whether that's through milk, cheese, yogurt. Calories generally have come up quite a bit. My calories were never too bad, in fairness, from my opinion. But because of the levels of exercise I was doing, I could definitely increase them a bit. And another big thing is carbs. I generally was quite a low carb athlete. I just felt really good on low carbs, to be honest with you, and felt generally when I had carbs, I felt a bit kind of lethargic. So one big thing I've been recommended, it might sound obvious as a runner, is basically increase my carbs. So I'm having carbs with pretty much every meal now. And that's been quite a big change for me, but welcome change. I'm happy to make these changes. So yeah, one of the things has been carbs, whether that's bread, cereal, even porridge, even stuff like pizza. My diet's certainly not perfect, but if I'm getting enough calories and enough carbs, it does make a hell of a difference. So yeah, more calories, more carbs, more calcium, as I said. Trying to nail all the vitamins as well, such as magnesium, potassium, etc. Protein is obviously a big one as an athlete. I was doing pretty well on that front, but just making sure I'm getting it in at regular intervals throughout the day as I come back to running. So yeah, there are a few things that I've changed on the nutrition front. I will do a separate video on just nutrition as a whole because it's such a big topic, and exactly what I've changed as I've been dealing with osteoporosis and the fractures. But there's a few there. So yeah, big changes to sleep, big changes to nutrition. Strength work has also changed dramatically. I basically did very minimal at all before 2024. I did a bit of body weight stuff like push-ups, a few pull-ups, a few lunges, a few squats with kettlebells, but certainly not consistently and not the level I should be for the amount of running I was doing. So that's a big thing that I've changed this year. I've brought on a coach, which has made a massive difference. Just keeping me accountable. I'm not going to pretend I love strength training. I find it quite tedious and boring, but having a coach there has made a big difference. So that's been another big change. And as you might know, if you're watching this with osteoporosis, generally strength training is going to be a good thing to increase your bone density, hopefully, but also just your general muscle mass, which we should all be prioritizing, especially as we get a bit older. So yeah, that's another big change. So strength work, again, I'll go into strength a bit more specifically on a future video, but nutrition, strength, sleep, they've been the big things. And then, as I said earlier, I've been lucky enough since, when did I return? I want to say I returned to running early August. And again, touch wood, I've been running consistently since then. So it's now, we're into November now, actually. So August, September, October, and start of November, I've been okay. I've been running consistently. Again, I didn't think I would be. And I have built up to nowhere near where I was 5K time, which is fine, but I ran a 17:47 5K the other day. So just to be at that level again feels great. And you never know what the future holds on the running front, but yeah, hopefully I can keep building and go from there. So yeah, positive few months. The first month I had to take it super, super easy. Literally 2-minute increments every other day. Which, was quite hard work to begin with. Obviously, you want to get going, but yeah, you've got to be patient, especially in my situation. So whole of August was taking it very easy. And then from then, essentially, I got the green light to push it more, which I have been doing. And yeah, as I said, it's been good since then. So hopefully, all going well, I can push forward, and yeah, just get somewhere close to where I was, which would be the absolute dream considering my outlook when I first got diagnosed. So yeah, hopefully this video has helped. It's my first speaking video for a very long time, so I appreciate I've probably gone off in a million different directions, but yeah, I appreciate there's quite a few people in a potentially similar situation as this. If you've not got any hope, or you're just feeling down about it, then I'd implore you to not give up. Obviously, feel free to reach out to me and ask any questions that might be of use. I'm not a medical professional, but I can give my experience from osteoporosis so far, and the fracture experience, of course, as well, which unfortunately quite a few runners will go through as well. Yeah, so hopefully it was of use to you. Let me know if you've got any questions. Let me know what you'd like to see next. I'd like to be doing more YouTube videos, especially on this topic. And yeah, we'll go from there. But yeah, thank you for watching if you have to this point, and I'll see you next time.